Welcome, I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you are listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom, as we welcome today The Lost Voice, with John Studi and Jacob Nelson.
Welcome to the Lost Voice radio program, where we seek to rediscover the lost voice of wisdom in our modern culture, which first spoke to Socrates some 2,000 years ago. Well, 2,300, but who's counting? As my favorite radio guy says, a couple 13, 14 years ago, which he says a couple 13, 14 to everything. Could be 20 minutes past the hour, 40 minutes past the hour. He says a couple 13, 14 past the hour. That's the common man Dan Cole on KFAN Radio here in the Twin Cities. Favorite radio guy there is.
You know, Jake, I'm offended. I really am.
You thought you were
when you said my favorite radio man, and you started saying those things, like, I remember saying that. I mean, sure, sometimes I get carried away and just kind of say crap.
Well, that's fair.
I don't know why I'd say that, but no, you're just...
By the way, I am Jacob Nelson, along with John Studi. Welcome.
Greetings.
How are you?
You're welcoming me?
Yeah.
This is my show, too.
Well, but we're in the recording studio on my...
property?
Yeah.
Oh. All right, I guess you don't have to invite me on board.
Speaking of on board, we have hymns today that will remind you of Gilligan's Island.
And remind you of all sorts of seafaring adventures, or misadventures, if you will.
Before we get there, we have to, of course, have a few moments of obligatory nonsense, and also just let you know that basically our entire show is a trigger warning. So if you need a safe space, I would shut us off and go find a safe space.
Yes, go to adoration where it's silent. Or perhaps... Maybe the silence it needs to be deafening, because some of the songs that you're going to hear today do come with a bit of an earbug, which is unfortunate because...
This goes back to our original hypothesis. The impetus that began our journey into the history of heresies through the hymnals. That Arius purposely wrote catchy songs in order to spread his heresy. Things that they get stuck in your head. They're sea shanties.
It's like Elmo's World, which is constantly stuck in my head. La 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 la.
No, that's not part of this.
See, I start messing with it, and it makes my son mad sometimes. They're like, la 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 la, Michael's World. He says, no, Michael's World. Then he'll go, no, do Daddy's World. Okay, that's weird.
Everything is Daddy's world.
He is. I am basically my son's world.
Yeah.
Oh, which is great sometimes, but I tell you, Jake, it would be nice.
Gets a little tiring.
To eat by myself.
Yeah.
To be able to sit down and read for 3 minutes while my son hangs out with my wife for a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, I have literally no free time anymore. My son has just been absolutely clean to me, and it's getting worse, which is great. I love Michael. I love Michael deeply, and I recognize that this is ultimately going to be a good thing, because he is showing a great affection for his father, and so as long as I model a good Christian life for him, then he is probably going to follow in my footsteps with that.
So you're telling me he has no hope?
Yeah. No, he has hope, because he's already an immensely better person than I am.
That's fair.
Every single morning he says, let's go see Jesus.
Wow.
And he doesn't even just say, let's go see Jesus. He throws his hands up in the air and says, let's go see Jesus!
That's fantastic.
He's very excited.
Yeah.
But I'll probably do that tomorrow. Go see Jesus tomorrow.
Yeah, it's
love it.
Quite fantastic.
Although
is he going with you to the youth day?
Oh, gosh, no.
Okay.
He would lose his mind.
That's fair.
As would I.
Yeah.
And
but you are a ginger, so you have no soul, thus no intellect, so you couldn't really lose your mind in the first place.
Oh, yeah. I'm just going to agree with you. I mean, there's no argument past that. Thoughts?
Yeah. Just thinking about it, I guess this highlights the fact that our whole show is a trigger warning and, not a safe space, and we go back to what we talked about with Chris, with making wild accusations and generalizations, assumptions about particular groups of people.
Speaking of...
So I made assumptions about gingers.
Gingers.
Yeah.
We have no soul, and therefore we're just prime matter.
Right.
There's no form.
Right.
And that we're just an amalgam of chaotic experiences.
Good use of the word amalgam.
Thank you.
Yeah.
An amalgam of the chaotic experiences which enter into your sensuous intuition and are thereby sorted into the categories of pure reason as outlined by Immanuel Kant and Prolegomena. And the Critique of Pure Reason, and so the only reason why it seems that I have any substantial qualities or any rationality to my behavior is just because you're imposing it on me. And now, speaking of imposing things on me,
I just got a notification.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Was it a notification about how?
No, it was just my sister.
Oh, hi, sister.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, so normally things without souls, if they're normally would have souls, to be dead. Speaking of dead,
right.
Dead is usually something that happens after somebody dies, which we call death. And now Jacob, considering that I'm talking about death, and that the theme of the show is music.
Oh, where is this going?
I really want to hear. I've known you for a long time, and all I know is that at some point in your life you were a part of a death metal band, and that is it.
It was not a death metal band.
No details. Was it screamo metal? I know it was something crazy.
It was screamo.
It was screamo?
Yes.
Jake, okay. On air today, I want to hear details. What kind of songs did you sing? What did you play? Did you ever do screaming? What was the theme? What was the name of the band? Tell me everything. I've never heard about this before.
Well, the reality studios, our show is only an hour long, and we're already almost at 7 minutes of obligatory nonsense.
All right, then you got 3 minutes to explain this to me, young man.
No, we don't have... No.
Young man, I am your elder by several months.
Why are you yelling?
Because I'm angry. And I want to talk about screamo music. Come on, let's hear it.
You would have been probably one of our biggest fans.
I would have. Actually used to like screamo or emo music.
I know.
Emo music.
Is that music that we sing to llamas?
No, it's... emus are birds. They're like really ugly ostriches.
That's right. Yeah, they're comparable to ostriches.
Even worse are cassowaries. You ever seen a cassowary?
I have not.
Google cassowary.
No, because last time you told me it was like really messed up diseases, and that wasn't cool.
All right, fine. Basically, emus are like velociraptors, except with feathers. And they're evil. And huge and terrifyingly ugly. Speaking of terrifyingly ugly, screamo music. So, Jacob.
Yeah.
What was the name of your band?
It was called Two-Faced.
Why was it called Two-Faced?
I don't remember.
What did you play?
I played guitar.
Did you ever do the screamo?
I did.
Were you a lead singer or a screamer?
I was the rare occasion of being the screamer.
Do you remember any of your songs?
I don't.
Do you remember the names of any of your songs?
I don't.
Did you ever make a recording?
No.
Really?
Really.
Okay. How long was this band together?
I played for like a year.
Would you be willing...
longer than most high school relationships.
Would you be willing to, on air, offer us an example of your ability to scream? Now, were you like screamo like August Burns Red, or were you more of a growler like Demon Hunter?
I'm not actually familiar with either one of those bands.
What?
Well, I was in screamo.
You don't know Demon Hunter? I was sworn you listened to Demon Hunter.
I was in screamo before I was Christian, because screamo and Christian doesn't really go together. So I didn't listen to Christian screamo bands like Demon Hunter.
I'm fairly... Well, Demon Hunter isn't screamo. It's growlo or whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
You should check it out. Okay. I think some of it is at least appropriate.
But that's ridiculous.
At least appropriate for low liturgical music. For low liturgy Catholics. Okay, fine. Low liturgy Anglicans. We'll give them that. They can have some Demon Hunter. There's some good songs with Demon Hunter. The lyrics are great.
Are they?
Oh, yeah. No, I love them. Fine. So you're so back to the question. Would you be willing to give an example of what it sounds like to hear Jacob Nelson?
Studi,
do a little bit of screamo music?
I would love to, but we're out of time.
Stalling. I see.
Nope. It's time to talk about other terrible music.
Other. It couldn't have been that bad, Jay. Come on, we're comparing with things like For Healing the Nations or Going Difference.
To be fair, our lyrics are probably more creative than, say, Marty Haugen, David Haas, or Dan Shue.
Can we get in trouble for this? I don't care.
I've stopped.
Bring them on board. Yeah, I don't really care because some of this stuff is just.
You know what?
Junk.
I would love to hear their perspective on things. If they want to come on air and and defend their music, by all means. And not all of their compositions are bad, but their lyrics oftentimes are fairly juvenile. And I think really speak to the lowest common denominator of the person in the pew. It doesn't actually challenge people to transcendence. It tries to meet people at the basest common denominator, in my opinion. And if they want to meet that challenge, they can come on air. I'm always open to dialogue.
I am too. I'd love to hear some of the rationale behind forming liturgical music in the way that they did. I think that one of the principal mistakes that people make regarding the Second Vatican Council and certain aspects of things like aggiornamento ressourcement or learning the language of the people is, or speaking the language of the people, is making the mistake that you must use the exact same tropes or exact same modes of communication that the culture has, or give them exactly what they're expecting.
Would be fine if liturgy was about communicating with one another. But liturgy is not about communicating with one another. It's about our communion with God. Mm-hmm. And so our communication must be more transcendent than our average day-to-day language. That's the huge problem with the really silly dynamic translation method of the liturgy. They didn't translate things directly from Latin to English. They did a dynamic translation.
Yeah, you guys get the gist. It's like,
right.
Do you want us to get the gist of the Eucharist too? Or?
Yeah. So with that being said, Studi, we have two things primarily that we're working on today on the show.
Sure.
One is to talk about the proper qualities of sacred music, as well as its purpose. The other is to continue our exploration of the history of heresies in the hymnals. Which would you like to do first? We need to get like a Wheel of Fortune sound effect.
Okay.
Or elevator music.
How about I just like YouTube it?
You could do that. Also, I really want to continue on doing like a Mystery Liturgy Theater 3000.
Do you have another one?
Well, I can play the music, the songs.
There's another one today, isn't there?
What? Another what?
Oh, if we had a guess, we could throw it at them. Wait, you're asking which one do you want to do first? Oh,
yeah.
What I want to do first is, well, I think that principles are always better put first before singulars. So, Jake.
Yes.
Would you kindly touch upon some of the aspects that are required for music to be considered
I'd love to. I got to stretch out a little bit.
Because this is going to not only be a mental workout, but it's going to be a physical workout.
Got to warm up, you know?
Very passionate about this.
So, we can take our principles of sacred music from a few different documents. One is tra-la, not tra-la.
It's like that's a meme. That's a meme, Jake. Memes do not belong in liturgy.
Tra le sollicitudini, which was a very...
Sounds like a magician.
Yeah, right. Very important document on liturgy and liturgical music. The other one would be Sacrosanctum Concilium from the Second Vatican Council. And in there, we can see that the Church's tradition of sacred music is a great treasure. That's what paragraph 112 talks about. And it also talks about the purpose of sacred music in paragraph 112. So the number one purpose of sacred music is the glory of God. That should be our whole focus when we enter into the musical traditions of the Church. Number one, glory of God.
Glory of God, all right.
Yes. Number two, the sanctification of his people.
All right. Good.
I'm going to throw a wild accusation out there, and I'm going to wait on that.
All right.
And so then it's important to understand that sacred music's purpose is not a means of manipulating the liturgy. Mm-hmm. It should not be about our personal taste, period. Mm-hmm. It can't be. Because, as Pope Benedict said, things that man make can easily be unmade by other men. So the liturgy cannot be about our individual taste. Likewise, the purpose of sacred music is not a hook. It shouldn't be a tool to just draw people in. It shouldn't be, you know, hey, come check us out. We got the most dynamic worship. We're a vibrant parish with our music. You know, these, like, hook kind of catchwords.
Sure.
Not the point. Also, not an expression of the self or the community. And this is important because a lot of parishes see themselves as individual communities, not always necessarily united to the diocese or the church as a whole, and their music reflects that. I'll talk about that more in a minute. And then also, it is not to distinguish a particular community, but to unite it to the liturgy, which is interesting. Music is supposed to unite a parish to the liturgy. But doesn't the liturgy happen within the parish? No, wrong. Studi, what does the Greek liturgia mean?
Public work.
Public work. Thus, liturgy is the public work of the church, and so the music that is done in a particular parish should unite the parish outside of itself to the greater Catholic Church as a whole.
So when the priest at the end says the Mass is ended, go in peace, that's not actually the right way to phrase it, but go the Mass is might be a better way of speaking of things.
Yeah, so this new translation of the Mass, there are two spots that really grind my gears. One is the Latin expecto.
Expecto Patronum? Is this what we're going with?
Yeah, we have a Harry Potter Mass now. No,
that's probably a thing.
I think it's expecto.
Don't give people ideas. There's been a lot of 60s Catholics out there.
I think it was expecto, and it correlates to when we say we look forward to the resurrection of the dead. That's not true. The Latin directly translated as expect, and there's a big difference between looking for the resurrection of the dead as if it's something that's lost and we have to find it, versus we expect it. The expectant faith tells us of something of our faith in Jesus.
The certitude,
right.
Fact, we have it in anticipation.
Right.
Okay.
And then the other one is missa ite est. So, missa ite est is the Latin for go the Mass is. But it's still translated as go in peace. Or the Mass is ended, go in peace. And then what's our response? Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God, it's all over.
Yeah,
right?
Thanks be to God.
My brother made that joke first. I'm like, that's hilarious, Matthew.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Terrible. So anyway, these are the purposes and not purposes of sacred music, but then going back, what is the quality of sacred music? And St. Pius X, in his motu proprio on sacred music, Tra le Solicitudini, says this: the three qualities of sacred music are holiness, goodness of form, and universality. So, we need to be cautious that while we are to incorporate certain aspects of our cultural heritage within our music, thus in Germany, Mozart, Beethoven, Haydn, they wrote for the Mass. We can incorporate some things of our culture, but regardless of what we incorporate, it needs to be seen in a universal way as a way to worship God. And so, if any of you out there are offended by the following, I'm sorry that you're offended, but I'm not sorry I'm offending you. Distinctions are important. Rock masses are not proper. Polka masses are not proper.
Wait, question about polka masses.
What?
Is that where people dress up in characters from that Japanese TV show?
No, it's Poke Mass.
Okay. Sorry.
Good one.
I was a little bit confused with it. Oh gosh, we got to get Jenna on the show to talk about the polka masses.
So anyway, holiness, goodness of form, and universality. And those qualities are important because those are the three qualities that tell us of the purpose of sacred music and fulfill that purpose, which is the glory of God and the sanctification of His people. So that being said,
glory of God and the sanctification of His people.
Yes, through holiness, goodness of form, and universality. It is universal that Gregorian chant is set apart for worship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's universal that the organ is the premier instrument of the church to worship God. The goodness of form, we look at compositions of the great composers, of the ancient hymns of the church, things like this. And then we look at works by, say, Marty Haugen that reflect the Wreck of the Ella Fitzgerald or a song by Styx. Sorry, that's not goodness of form. That's folk music. There's no goodness of form in that in terms of the liturgy. And then holiness, again, if it's just music that reflects the rest of our daily life, it's not holiness, because holiness means what, Studi?
Being set apart.
Being set apart. So if the music isn't objectively set apart from the rest of our experience, we're not really having the quality of holiness in our music. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So those are the principles. By the way, I just bought, I'm excited, the compiled works on the liturgy by Joseph Ratzinger.
That's published?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been published for a little while.
Really?
Yeah.
I knew it was coming out, but I didn't know it was coming out this year. I thought I was going to wait a little bit.
No, I have it. It's in my office.
I also hear that he has been working on a response to modern atheism.
Yes, I've heard that as well. I also bought of his because it was very cheap. And I would name the publisher, but we're not getting paid to advertise, so maybe we can, figure that out.
Make some deals.
Yeah, make some deals.
Under table deals.
Forget about it. But I bought from this publisher as well, Pope Benedict's What It Means to Be a Christian. Fabulous work. It's about 85 pages. I've read 20 and have ended up nearly in tears each time I've read it because it's so powerful.
I need to read it again. I read it once.
Oh, did you?
3 hours.
No, you got to take it just chapter by chapter. Use it as a prayer book.
I agree.
It's good.
I read it when I first became Catholic.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. So this leads us into our Mystery Liturgy Theater 3000.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we are talking about a few different songs today. Songs, hymns. I don't know what you really want to call them. But Studi, do you want to start here? Do you want to take us in? Do you want to talk a little bit about what you want to talk about?
What do I want to talk about?
I don't know.
Well, we ended talking a little bit about the what was that song we were talking about?
I am the bread of life.
I am the bread of life. The I am Jesus.
Wait, you're the bread of life?
I am the bread of life.
Huh.
It's according to the song.
That's fascinating, because I could have sworn Scripture said that Jesus is the bread of life.
Well, if what we become is what we become, and we eat the bread of life, then we become the bread of life. And by becoming participants in the divine nature, and if the divine nature is united to human nature in flesh, which is transubstantiated from bread into the same flesh, that we're a part of the body, and the church is the body. I don't know where they gave these things from.
This sounds like a bout of sophisticuffs.
Sophisticuffs, yes. I want to make a t-shirt out of that. That sounds like a great t-shirt.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought about making my own podcast too at some point in the future, where I have when I have more time on my hands and not working 4 jobs and going to grad school, having a hobby and trying to keep a relationship with my wife, making a podcast called Sophisticuffs, where I just get pissed off philosophically speaking.
How is that not different from what we do already?
Because I always swear more. Oh, this is a song, huh?
Yeah, this is I Am the Bread of Life.
It ticks me off for 10 million reasons. Because Jesus isn't singing to us!
Now, may I make a distinction?
What?
Because I am Distinction Man.
And you're also Stinky Man.
That's fair, but that's a different thing. If we were to take part in the liturgy and allow the choir or the scola, polyphony, whatever, to sing, and we allowed that music to lift us up, not that we have to actually sing it, but that we allowed it to raise us up, lift our hearts in the liturgy, then I could see where this might be appropriate, because we have this grand voice singing to us a song of love.
Sure.
But that's not what's encouraged in Mass. What's encouraged is that we all have to sing. Let's sing together. Let's clap and dance and have fun and enjoy it, and all be a part of it. Yay! And that's ridiculous because we're putting ourselves in the place of Christ.
Right.
But if we did actually take part in the liturgy the way that Vatican II saw it, participatio actuosa, actually participating, not being grounded in activity, I could actually see this as almost acceptable, but that's not what's done.
No.
So go on.
The practice itself is that.
And there's nothing particularly heretical about this song.
No, if we keep in mind that it is talking about Jesus.
Right.
The issue that I have is that because we sing it, because there's already within the culture of Malou, the zeitgeist of our age, spirit of the age, there's already this idea or this trend to think of ourselves as almost ontologically identical with God, as extensions of God's nature in reality. We have something of a pantheistic vision.
That's Buddhism.
Yeah.
We're all partakers in the one divine thing.
Sure, yeah.
Because none of us exist. We're just all God.
Yeah, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. In either case, we need to have... We're not monists. We can't believe that as Catholics. And so we do need to have these strong distinctions between us and God. Which, if you guys listen to my podcast talking to Dr. Gregory Boyd, one of the things...
Wait, you have a podcast?
Wait, hold on, sorry. Talking to the show where I interviewed Dr. Boyd on divine simplicity and personalistic theism, one of his principal objections is that he thinks that because God is fundamentally and wholly the cause of all things, including us, that there is nothing there's nothing about us which stands over and against God, which I don't understand exactly what he means by that. It's a very strange thing for him to say. But what he was saying is it seems as if we affirm that God is identical with the act of existence and that God causes every aspect of our being, which he does, and is the source of all our motion and our existence, then how is it that we're distinct from God at all?
Right.
And now what he just couldn't seem to wrap his mind around is two things. One is that when we talk about God as our cause, we're principally speaking of him as the efficient cause of our nature. Mm-hmm. He is also the exemplar cause of our nature, insofar as
if you believe in an exemplar cause.
If you believe in an exemplar cause, which
fifth cause,
you do. I do. After much debate and fighting about this for a very long time, the exemplar cause is a cause, but it's almost like a formal cause part B, because it's it's something that's distinct from formal cause with substantial formal cause or intelligible formal cause. Because the exemplar formal cause is the ideal by which all things are compared. God's very active existence, his essence, is complete and utter perfection. So any perfection that we have is measured over and against that of God's. However, our perfections are limited. Human perfection, human beings are limited in their mode of existence by our essence. And so essentially we are different from God. God is not the formal cause of mankind. We don't have this emanation of the divine essence. Secondly, what he didn't understand was that God creates ex nihilo, meaning
from nothing.
From nothing. So we, in a way, I'm going to speak loosely here, we are fundamentally nothing. And what I mean by that is that without God's continual action, we would dissolve into nothingness again. God is constantly holding us in existence by the very power of his
word. And this comes from the fact that God is pure act.
Yes.
And so every thought that God has necessarily comes into existence. God can't have passive thoughts where he goes, I wonder what would happen if I made this tree today.
Right.
If he thinks tree, the tree is.
Sure.
And so the fact that all of us exist shows us that God is actually perpetually thinking of us at all times.
Yeah, there's no distinction among God's attributes. They're all one and the same. His knowledge is his action.
He doesn't have attributes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The attributes of God are secundum quid. They're secondary. They're something that's divided only because, as Jake is very fond of saying, it's a pastoral as well as metaphysical principle that we need to keep in mind, that everything received is
received according to the Lord of the receiver.
And so we as human beings understand things through distinctions and divisions because we ourselves are divided in many ways. And so when we look at God, we see these divisions. Right. Long story short, coming back right to the...
Yes, because we have other hymns we want to get to.
We do. There are the hymns I want to punch in the face. The issue here is that when we don't make a distinction between us and God in the liturgy, we are also, Boyd wasn't able to understand that God is pure act itself and necessarily exists, and he didn't see how Aquinas' view that humans are essentially created out of nothing, as opposed to God, who never couldn't possibly not exist. Mm-hmm. He didn't get that. And he even made a really wild claim too. He said that Thomas claimed that we are made out of God's same substance, and that's just nutty.
Yeah.
But anywho, when we don't make distinctions between us and God in liturgy, we're reversing the order of glory.
Yeah.
And by putting ourselves in God's place, we're giving the glory that's due to God to us.
Right. So if I may move to another hymn just very briefly to highlight this obfuscation between God and man, I would like to just play this one. And this is a very common one.
I will come to you in the silence. I will lift you from...
You Are Mine by David Haas. Again, this isn't necessarily heretical in and of itself. The problem, though, is that the verse, I am yours and you are mine, there's a huge obfuscation here, a huge confusion, because I could actually take that as me having ownership over God. You are mine, which isn't that the perpetual temptation of mankind to make God in our own image? And so a lot of the hymns in these hymnals are not explicitly heretical, but the problem is that a lot of the error in the people in the pews is not because they're heretics, but because they're confused. And songs like this perpetuate confusion about what is termed in theology the ground of being. God is God, and I am not. And these hymns, by putting ourselves in the place of God, especially one as, I don't know, confusing as this song, I am yours and you are mine. Whose voice am I speaking in? Because it's one thing if I'm speaking in Jesus' voice, which is bad enough in itself. But if I'm speaking in my own voice, that's even worse, because I'm claiming ownership over God. And there's no distinction anywhere near. And notice in all of this...
But it equivocates between our ownership of God or with our ownership. Oh, sorry, it's univocal. It sounds univocal.
Right. And in this entire song, there's not the name of Christ once. There's no mention of God. Who are we singing to?
Yeah. Oh, that one gets...
And that's the problem with a lot of these first-person shooter kind of songs. If you're familiar with video games, putting ourselves in the first person of God is that it's one thing to put ourselves in the person of God, but the necessary effect is that all mention of God himself is actually removed from the song, because if I'm in the voice, there's no sense in writing lyrics that reference God because I'm the one singing in his voice. So actually what happens when we sing these songs is that we take God completely out of it. We're not worshiping God anymore. We're speaking God's words to one another. And that's not a worship of God. Studi, I can quote scripture to you, and I can walk with you as a brother and speak God's words to you that he's spoken through the ages. And that's a great thing. But within the liturgy, because it's a public work, we need to be, as a whole public, oriented towards the same thing. And that's not each other. Because the community changes. God doesn't. And so we need to be oriented towards God, not each other.
You know what I think we need to do, Jake?
What do we need to do?
We need to do something. We really need to go make a difference.
Oh, boy.
We can make a difference, Jake.
Can we make a difference?
We can make a difference in the world. Notice that.
Is this, are you referencing a hymn, or is this like a Farm Aid or
Farm Aid?
What was that?
Pomade?
No, not Pomade. There was the Farm Aid concert. There was a big song back in like the 80s or 90s that like 50 different famous artists contributed to as a fundraiser.
Farm Aid? I've never heard of this thing. What is this? It sounds like I think of like Lemonade or Farm Aid, Center for Sustainable Food Systems, UBC. What are you talking about? Are you crazy, Jake?
I'm trying to think of.
Is there a thing?
Just give me a moment. I'm finding. Yeah.
Farm Aid lineup. Oh.
We Are the World.
I got it.
Yeah, this Go Make a Difference reminds me of We Are the World. Do you know that one?
I mean, I probably do. Okay, what's the words? What are the lyrics?
We Are the World. That's the title of the song.
Well, yeah, that's the title of the song. What's the?
It was for Aid for Africa.
Oh, Aid for Africa, not Farm Aid. There comes a time. Okay, we are the world. Okay, so this is like, this. I don't like Go Make a Difference. One, because the tune, Go Make a Difference. You can make a difference. One of my volunteers and their family satirized it by saying, go make a sandwich. You can make a sandwich. You can make a sandwich for the world. Which is great, because if we go make sandwiches for the world, we're, fulfilled.
We are making a difference.
We are making a difference. No matter what we do, Jake, you are making a difference. And know that you're important and that Jesus loves you. And you're special.
So Go Make a Difference, not by construction of the song, but by mentality, reminds me of this. And tell me, if we're singing all of these hymns at Mass, how is this one not included? How can we say that this one is not proper to the Mass?
That's just
Right?
I just so it's the same. It mentions God more often than the last song that we spoke of. This is actually more fitting to liturgical music. What was the song we were just talking about, Jake? I am nothing but of life. I am hope the hopeless. There we go. Yeah, you are mine. So it's official, people. We Are the World by Michael Jackson is better liturgical music than David Haas's. You are mine.
Just so everybody knows, this was not part of our show prep. This is completely accidental.
Yes.
But you're right. So, in the style of Mystery Science Theater 3000, I'm going to read the lyrics here of Go Make a Difference, or sorry, not Go Make a Difference, We Are the World. There comes a time when we need a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying, and it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somehow will soon make a change. We are all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, love is all we need. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true we'll make a better day, just you and me. And it goes on. But now, can I just... Let me just do something here quick as I type into the old computer machine. So, go make a difference. We are the salt of the earth, called to let the people see the love of God in you and me. We are the light of the world, not to be hidden but be seen. Go make a difference in the world. So let your love shine on. Let it shine for all to see. Go make a difference in the world, and the Spirit of Christ will be with us as we go. Go make a difference in the world. How is this any different? No answer?
So, substantially speaking, no. But we actually have Heresy in one of the songs.
Let me guess. The hymn?
Yes.
Judy, please tell me how Michael Jackson has a more doctrinally sound song for the liturgy and in general than a hymn that we sing on many Sundays in Catholic Mass.
Now,
please inform me.
One question I have.
Make a difference in my life.
I will make a difference in your life. Now before I go with that, have you ever heard "Go Make a Difference" not sung after the priest has said "Go the masses"? Or go make, go...
what do you mean, like at the beginning of Mass?
Like at the beginning of the Mass.
No, it's always the last one.
Yeah, it's always the last one. It's kind of a go song, which is, very evident by the title. So, there's some question I've heard of when the liturgy actually ends. Is it when the priest actually exits the...
The liturgy ends with the final blessing.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's my understanding as well.
The liturgy is from sign of the cross to sign of the cross.
Okay. Just like, when you pray,
Right.
On and off, or whatever. I don't know. That's kind of a weird way to think about it. In any case, so I'm looking at this song, Go Make a Difference. And the very last line, at least in the lyric lineup I see right here, is second, we are the hands of Christ reaching out to those in need, the face of God for all to see. We are the hope. We are the spirit of hope. We are the voice of peace. What? So, just grammatically speaking here again. We are the hands of Christ reaching out to those in need. So the subject of this sentence, this long sentence here, is we. So it's about we. And so we are, says, the face of God for all who see. There's maybe a metaphorical way of thinking about that, in the sense that we are created in the image and likeness of God. So we can say, all right, that's fine. I think that's fine. But the second one here, we are the spirit of hope. We are the voice of peace. To say that we are the spirit of hope, the spirit of hope. Jake?
Yeah.
You hearing this?
Because nobody's accused me of being the spirit of hope. I'm like a black cloud in all my friends' lives.
You constantly rain upon my...
I am Jeremiah to you being Israel.
Oh, will you make a little model city for me, and then, sleep next to it, and then dig a hole in my wall while you eat anxiously and pack up all your belongings?
Yeah.
That would be great. But if you look at Scripture, when it talks about a spirit and hope, it's frequently talking about, you have the God of hope, who wants us to be filled with all joy, in Romans 15:13. That we have, so the God of hope, it says, so Romans 15:13 says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in Him, so that you may overflow with the hope by the power of the Spirit, Holy Spirit. And so this song is placing man as in the spirit of hope, as a spirit of hope. We, the people, the congregants singing the song, are the spirit of hope. We are God. We are the ones who are the source of hope for the world, which is just bunk.
Nope, don't throw the wallet.
Don't throw the wallet?
Don't do it.
Okay.
It's not worth it.
It's not?
No.
Not yet? Why?
No, because I want to make a difference in your life.
Aw, thank you, Jacob.
I'm sorry, did you want to, like, Mystery Science Theater this one and
I mean,
have
we
it in the
could.
background?
Let's do it.
I mean, the danger of this is that
Oh my gosh!
the danger is we might start dancing instead of talking.
This is particularly bad. Like, out of all the renditions of this I've heard.
Oh, yeah. This is like 80s. And actually, We Are the World has a more solemn, reverent sound to it than this.
It does, yeah.
I think we should start singing Michael Jackson in the liturgy.
Do you get to have some of like the glamorous, what do you call it? So what I'm looking for, Jake?
I don't know.
The outfits.
Oh, yeah. And one glove.
One glove.
Yeah. Which actually, altar boys used to wear gloves.
Yeah, I was
and they
gonna say.
don't anymore. And they wore them out of reverence for even holding
The vessels which hold the body of Christ.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they even wore one glove, it would be more reverent than what we have now.
All right. Making a case for a Michael Jackson liturgy. If they have polka masses, and that's fine, why can't we have Michael Jackson masses, huh? Incorporate some of his stuff.
I think this might be going down a path we didn't want to go
No,
down.
Jake. You listen to me, man, all right? So Michael Jackson actually gave to the world a unique style of
Oh, he
dance.
did. He most certainly did.
And he was a king of pop. And so Jesus being
No, don't
king
even.
of kings
This is
and the Lord of the dance,
this is bad even for
we
you.
therefore not to use.
But this brings up a whole nother issue. A whole other song.
No, before we get there, Jake, I'm really upset with this song too because it says "Go make a difference in the world," etc. And so what ticks me off about this is it doesn't tell you what kind of difference to make.
That's true.
The only illusion
If I murder you today, I did make a difference in the world.
you did because I would. Everybody would be happy.
Well, no, that would be an awful difference,
It would
but
be.
it would in fact change the world.
It would. It would change the world.
It's very ambiguous.
And this is stupid. Like, you know, people. Dr. Shree brought this up in one of my classes. He said, "Everybody wants to make a difference in the world." Well, the thing is, you're always going to make a difference in the world.
Right.
You have to ask yourself the question: what kind of difference do you want to make in the
Well,
world?
the fact that you exist means you're making a difference in the world.
Right, because you can't exist without some sort of interaction with the rest of reality.
Right.
So this song is just again ambiguous.
Right.
Which what's there's an expression like ambiguity is a tool of the devil or something like that.
Yep.
I mean, it's the truth of the devil. As long
The
as you
old
lost.
phrase, the devil's in the details, is actually the opposite of what's true. The devil is in the lack of detail.
Right.
He's in the lack of distinction.
He's in a lack of proper understanding. And so the only thing that I can see in here is is an allusion to the we are the salt of the earth, called to let the people see the love of God in me and you. We are the light of the world, not to be hidden but to be seen. Go make a difference in the world. But what are we seeing? What does this love of God look like? In me, the love of God in me and you. Okay, well, what are we doing with that love of God? Are we calling them to holiness and relationship, or are we just going to express ourselves or express affection to people? I just don't see how this song really is called a mission like it is obviously supposed to be.
So, this next song, and I've read this a couple places now, I haven't read a biography about it. But the fact that I've read it in multiple places means that there might be some truth to it. Lord of the Dance. This is honestly a troubling song.
And I came down from heaven and I danced on the earth. At Bethlehem I had my birth. Dance there wherever you may be, for I am the Lord of the dance, said he. And I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he.
I danced for the scribe and the Pharisee, but they wouldn't dance.
So I don't think Jesus ever danced for the Pharisees. I think he called them a brood of vipers, which is worse than our equivalent of son of a bitch.
And then the 7 woes. Woe are you?
Yeah, I don't think there's much dancing going on.
No, he was pretty grim with the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
Yeah.
Granted, he was worse with the Sadducees because, well, they denied the resurrection, spiritual creatures, and a host of other issues, a host of other essential features of the world and of what Christ believed. But yeah, there's so.
I have a few things to say.
Okay.
And then we're probably out of time because we have 10 minutes left. First thing is that the argument to keep the song around that David danced before the Lord is not a valid argument to keep the song in the Catholic liturgy.
How is that an argument?
It's used. Because David danced before the Lord, so we should be able to dance before the Lord as well. One of the problems is Catholic liturgy is not the same as Jewish worship. And so we can't make an equivalency. We draw a ton of things out of Jewish worship, but they're not equivalent in any way. Secondly, David was in a particular position of being king and anointed before the Lord, which we are not. We have a baptismal kingship in Christ, but that's a very different thing than where David was.
Well, he even had liturgical responsibilities. He was priest and king, which was a particular part of the office of the promised king.
Right.
I think the other issue with that, too, is in African culture.
Yeah.
You saw this at your last parish.
Yep.
It flows forth from the nature of who they are to dance, to move. For white people that is not the case.
Yeah. So then my 2 other issues with this song. One is that the form of it borrows the American Shaker song Simple Gifts. And Simple Gifts is not in itself evil or anything. It's a fine melody. But within Catholic worship, we shouldn't probably use Protestant things in Catholic worship because Protestant services are fundamentally different from Catholic worship. Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons why we probably shouldn't sing A Mighty Fortress by Martin Luther.
Yeah. Let's not incorporate the Song of a Heretic into our liturgy.
To be fair, there's nothing wrong that I recall in A Mighty Fortress.
Sure.
But maybe it's not something we ought to sing because it, in a sense, glorifies the writer of it. So with Lord of the Dance, the structure is based on the Shaker song Simple Gifts. But the bigger problem, and this, in all fairness, could be just a story. This may not be factual, but from what I can gather from multiple sources, nothing definitive, with multiple sources, is that this is the history of the song. That the writer of the song, if you give me a second, I'll get his name, Sidney Carter, was inspired by a statue of Vishnu.
Okay. That's weird.
Or not Vishnu, sorry.
Vishnu.
Shiva.
Shiva. Oh, you mean the goddess of death?
No, the god of dance.
What?
Yeah, the Hindu god Shiva is Nataraja.
It's crazy.
Yes. Nataraja, meaning the Lord of the Dance,
is
a depiction of the Hindu god Shiva as a cosmic ecstatic dancer. His dance is called Tandavam or Nadanta, depending on the context of the dance. And this is really, 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 really problematic. That we would take inspiration from a false idol, from a god of a different religion, and apply that to our Lord and Savior, Son of the living God, Jesus Christ. How is this a part of our worship? This is ridiculous. And some of you out there might like it, and it's catchy, and I get it, and that's fine, it's catchy. But again, the purpose of liturgy is not about our own preference, but about what authentic worship of God means within the context of the public work of the church. So the only person that can tell us what liturgy ought to look like is the church herself.
Right. Which the church is giving some fairly clear guidelines as to what...
Gregorian chant is number 1. Polyphony is number 2. Organ is the premier instrument. You can make an argument that no percussive instrument should ever be used in the liturgy. And by the way, that would include piano. But it's not a hill I would die on. But piano is a percussive instrument.
You know, I've been wondering about that. It's also a stringed instrument. Because you go ding, 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 ding.
But it's percussive because it strikes.
Could you use a fiddle and then do the plucking or like tapping method? Would that be percussive, Jacob? Huh, Mr. Smart Liturgy Man?
If you look at any musical book, piano is going to be considered percussive. So shove that in your pipe and smoke it.
Gladly.
To Shiva. Studi, what are we going to do? We've tried to make a difference. We've tried dancing. We've eaten bread. We've broken bread together.
We've rammed one another in go-karts at 20 miles per hour.
No, you ran into me head-on at 40 miles an hour.
Hey, you're the one who spun out around the quickest corner of the track.
That's fair.
Right after it actually starts at the... Long story short, we went go-karting the other day, and
I think they gathered that.
we were uncomfortable for a brief period.
My neck was sore for a while. I thought maybe I either got whiplash or a minor concussion.
Wednesday, the 2 days after, I was pretty sore. Basically all over my back, which makes a lot of sense because the way it jerked my body.
Yeah.
But we're doing more nonsense. This is great.
This is nonsense.
It is nonsense. But either way, ramming each other. We tried ramming each other. We tried dancing. We tried eating bread. We tried throwing rocks.
Right?
Have we tried throwing rocks?
Maybe not. I don't know, at each other, maybe. I don't know. But, I mean, it comes down to it. Music in the liturgy is about the glory of God, not about the glory of man. So just stop. Just stop. Just do what the church wants and stop all the silliness. The 70s are over. Can we move on? Studi, can we move on?
We can move on.
What do we have left to talk about?
I don't know. How much time do we have?
We have 4 minutes.
Oh, 4 whole minutes. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, coincidentally, I'll just play Matt Maher's version of the Tantum Ergo. It's beautiful. Could be used.
I like it.
Yeah. So, I mean, not everything has to be 1,000 years old. There can still be additions to the liturgy, but why would we limit ourselves to the lowest common denominator? Why would we seek the basic when we could long for the excellent? Why not seek the beautiful in worship? Why do we have to listen to just worldly garbage? When we go to Mass, we're supposed to be set apart. It should be a refuge, right? It should be an oasis. There's a particular point in Catholic architecture that at the church I work in now, it's called the atrium, but kind of the entrance vestibule is supposed to be a place of quiet and peace, so that there's a transitional period between the noise of the world and the sanctuary of heaven. And where I work at now is a beautiful job. They have
they do.
It's very bright, wide open, beautiful, has a little pond with a waterfall effect. It's very peaceful, and really it prepares you well to enter into the church. So why don't we do that with our music? Why does it have to be noisy and clappy, happy, dancey kind of stuff? And it's not to mean that music has to be sad and solemn, but it can be glorious and beautiful. It doesn't have to be like no better than Styx or the guy who wrote The Wreck of the Ella Fitzgerald.
Next time.
Next time.
Note about this song, I mean, not this particular, but the Tantum Ergo or the Pantalingua, or
Panjalingua.
Yeah, Pantalingua. That was written in response to the Pope, who was asking theologians and writers to compose a hymn for Eucharistic adoration, and a number of the greatest thinkers in the Catholic faith answered that call.
Bonaventure
and St.
Thomas Aquinas.
And now the two who came down as the kind of the final contestants for who would be accepted, whose hymns would be accepted, was actually between St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Bonaventure.
Right.
And St. Bonaventure asked Aquinas to show him Aquinas his hymns. And upon reading Aquinas' work, Bonaventure burst into tears, went home, and burned all of his works. Because he said nothing he's written could compare to the time of Amerigo. And now that's not to say, because St. Bonaventure, I'd say, is generally actually a more beautiful writer than St. Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Journey of the Mind to God is a wonderful work.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Short, too. I mean, it's...
And so much of what he writes just has a poetry and a flow to it, and it's mellifluous, meaning sweet and flowing.
Well, his name means good journey.
Ooh, I like that. That's
Bonaventure.
Great. That's great. Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. Yeah, Bonaventure, because that is actually the words that would be used there. But so basically, what I'm saying is that even though the Tantum Ergo doesn't have to make us cry, it makes St. Bonaventure cry. So if you cry, that's fine.
So this brings up an idea. Perhaps maybe next week, instead of us destroying hymns, maybe there's one or two we could take apart and warn our audience about. But maybe we could dive into some of the beautiful hymns of the church.
I agree.
And lift up our audience instead of just perpetually beating one another down.
But if we complain and yell about stuff, that's how we get better ratings. Nobody cares about beauty. We just want to make fun of people.
Yeah, that's fair. But we can make fun of each other off air.
We can. There's one song actually written by a Protestant that I want to talk about next week.
Okay.
That I think is genuinely beautiful, with the exception of a poor interpretation of one line. And
sure,
we'll get to that.
So next week we'll talk about the beauty of music in the Mass, and we'll come up with some great alliteration like History of the Heresies through the Hymnals. But we'll talk about the magnificence of music in the Mass.
The magnificence of music through the mystery of the Mass.
Ooh.
We threw another M in there.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my name is Jacob Nelson, along with Jonathan Studi for the Lost Voice radio program and WCAT Radio. If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, or thoughts of any sort, please email us at lostvoice@wcatradio.com. And here we are, signing off.
Wait, Jake.
Yes?
So you said if they have any thoughts of any sort.
Yeah.
I especially would like it if you'd share those, because I haven't had a thought in years.
That's fair.
Please help. So Lost Voice at WCAtradio.com.
Goodbye. Good week.
Bye.
See you
God bless.
next week.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.